2. 3 a.m. My front door is hanging open like a busted jaw, and a kid in designer sneakers is shoulder deep in my kitchen drawers. He looks up, bored like he owns the place, and says, "Relax. My mom runs the HOA. I can go wherever I want." I laugh, not because it's funny, but because entitlement. That loud sounds like a dare. I hit 911 and say, "You just picked the wrong house." And in that moment, I realize this isn't just a break-in. It's the rotten fruit of a tree that's been growing since the day I unloaded my boxes on North Cedar Ridge. Yeah, that happened. I'm Evan Cole, electrician by trade, single dad. By the grace of coffee and stubbornness, moved here for quiet streets, porch lights that work, a school that won't chew up. My daughter Lena first week. I mow the lawn and think, okay, maybe life can be simple again. Second week, a silver SUV glides up like it's in a parade, and out steps Charlene Voss, HOA president, with the smile of a dentist and the patience of a debt collector. She taps my mailbox post with a manicured nail. Not compliant. Must be charcoal, not chestnut. I go inside and read the bylaws till my eyes cross. Not one word about post colors. I call the number I get. "Charlene," she says. Community standards evolve. Then she hangs up, you know what I mean. The drip begins a courtesy photo of trash cans you can't see unless you stand on a ladder. A letter about Lena's little frog statue being an excessive display. And every morning at 8:15, that SUV cruises by like a shark. That learned how to signal Lena stares at her cereal and asks why the lady keeps taking pictures. I tell her we must be famous and pretend it's a joke. Then comes Saturday. Clipboard measuring tape, digital camera, and a shadow behind Charlene. A kid with a smirk already loaded. Routine inspection. She declares like she's swearing in a witness. I ask for the section and line that lets her march around my yard. She doesn't answer. She prowls the kid. Brady points at a nickel-sized oil spot, like he discovered a crime scene. We'll note that Charlene says I step between her and my door and say, "No, you won't not." Without the rule in writing. Otherwise, you're trespassing. The air goes tight. You can hear somebody's lawnmower 3 streets over. Then she smiles. The kind of smile that means war and not much else. "You'll be hearing from us." Brady photographs my license plate like he's deputized by his haircut. "You have no idea who you're messing with." He tosses, he's right. But not the way he thinks. The letters multiply. The fines creep up like a thermostat. Somebody else controls 57 of 100. And suddenly, city code enforcement is at my door on an anonymous tip about dangerous electrical work. The inspector shrugs after an hour and says, "Everything's up to code." Maybe you have an enemy, and I try not to laugh that evening. Miss Ruth from down the way knocks with cinnamon cookies, and a look I recognize from people who've survived things. "She picked you, honey," she says, eyes flicking toward the street. The last family that asked questions sold in 6 months. It's the way she checks over her shoulder that makes me cold. You shouldn't have to do that in a neighborhood. I start doing what men do when they're outmatched, but not out. I document photos, timestamps, recorded calls, because my state allows it. I make a folder called Paper Cuts, and it gets thick fast. I file disputes because due process exists on paper, even if power pretends it doesn't. The replies are copy-paste forwarded to the board. Hearing pending. I call the management company, and a tired voice admits. There hasn't been a board meeting in quite a while that night. At my kitchen table, I write a sentence on a legal pad. This is not about lawn height. This is a person who learned the rules so she could weaponize them. And I'm not teaching my daughter that loud people get to script our lives. The team forms like storm clouds. Miss Ruth brings her nephew Gabe, a forensic accountant with calculator eyes. He studies the budgets and mutters that the numbers don't drive straight. My friend Tasha from Legal Aid drops by with coffee and case law. Board members are fiduciaries. She says no meetings, no hearings, no authority. To fine or Lienamer, Bennett across the cul-de-sac, retired postal worker and spreadsheet philosopher, points to a binder and says mail has a funny way of getting lost. When Charlene's cousin runs the route, the small stuff starts to look like camouflage for the big stuff. Gabe draws 2 columns: dues collected and real expenses. And the space between them is a canyon wide enough to park that SUV. Landscaping, padded administrative services paid monthly to Voss Neighborhood Solutions, which is Charlene paying Charlene to be Charlene. That's the twist the moment the story stops being petty and becomes criminal theft. Dressed up in community letterhead, yeah. I felt the floor tilt. The next day, Brady hand delivers a notice of intent to file lien. 30 days or foreclosure. The toner smell is sharp. And so is the fear I call Tasha, and she says, not legally. They need a real board vote. They have smoke and mirrors. I still don't sleep knowing the law is not the same as feeling safe. So I set a different kind of trap. The police tell me straight. If he's inside, it's burglary. I install cameras and motion lights, rig my phone for alerts. Lena sleeps at a friend's. The neighbors help collect statements and old letters. We build a presentation for the legally required HOA meeting that Charlene keeps trying to delay, and we practice it until even my dog could explain the budget gap. The night it breaks open, I'm finishing overtime downtown. Hands raw, mind a blur, and the alerts start popping: front door, kitchen, hallway. By the time I hit my driveway, my heart is pounding like it wants out. The door is cracked. The lights are on, drawers, dumped folders everywhere. And there's Brady standing in the middle of my kitchen with our meeting notes in his hands like he pulled Excalibur. He doesn't even flinch. Told you my mom runs the HOA? He says. I lift my phone, keep recording, and hit 911. He sneers and asks if the cops will take my word over his family's. I say I own this house and the footage he's starring in. Blue lights strobe through the blinds. Officer Jenkins steps in, calm, as Granite sees the mess. The papers, the kid. Sir, step away from the documents, hands where I can see them. He tries one last line. Do you know who my mother is? And she gives him Miranda like a lullaby, and the cuffs click. That sound is a song I keep for bad days. The community room is standing room only for the meeting. You can feel the hum in the air and smell coffee that's been cooking too long. A local reporter sits front row, small notepad, big eyes. Charlene is front and center in a suit, sharp enough to slice. I start like a neighbor, not a prosecutor. I tell them. I moved here to be boring and couldn't pull it off. Then I click. Dues, expenses, the canyon between shell companies, consulting fees that look like rent on a lifestyle. Gabe translates numbers into plain speech. If you overpay a landscaper by $500 a month, that money isn't clipping hedges. It's clipping you, Tasha. Lays the law down. No board, no due process, no authority. What you've been told is a rule, is a scarecrow. People murmur, then speak. Then the room finds its voice. Charlene stands and calls me a disgruntled divorce. Someone in back says, "Sit down." Another says, We have the same letters. I play the video. Brady in my kitchen saying the quiet part. Loud, and when Charlene starts to spin a story about struggle and misunderstanding. Detective Harper stands up in the aisle, badge out a voice. Steady. We executed a search warrant at Ms. Voss's residence this morning. We recovered records indicating embezzlement and mail tampering. Ms. Voss, we need you to come with us. Silence falls the way snow does. Soft and total. Charlene sputters that she built this neighborhood. That without her, we'd all let it rot. I don't raise my voice. Maybe I say, but at least it would be ours. The applause is messy and too loud and perfect. 6 months later, a judge hands out sentences that don't fix everything, but make a dent. Brady gets 18 months. Charlene gets 36, and restitution that starts making its way back into kitchens. Like mine, checks that make people cry because they prove we weren't crazy. Dues drop because honesty is cheaper. LEDs go up, and evening walks feel like a movie with a better budget. We plant a community garden where Charlene used to sit in her SUV. Tomatoes, peppers, sunflowers, and stories. We vote in term limits, a resident finance committee, inspections that require notice, and actual cause. We post the books online in plain English. Meetings are full because people finally want to be there. Somebody nominates me for HOA president. I try to duck it, then I think about that good cardstock letter and Lena's face every time the silver SUV rolled by. I do a year, we treat the bylaws like guardrails, not handcuffs. I still replay that night sometimes. The cracked door, the kid, the heat in my chest if you've ever been pushed around by small-time authority dressed as community pride. Hear me. Document everything. Learn just enough law to stand on your feet. Find your neighbors. Bullies, count on your silence and your shame. Stand next to someone, and suddenly you're taller than you think, and here's the part that keeps the comment section awake last month. Someone asked if we should let Brady speak when he gets out. Some folks say yes, accountability includes listening. Others say no. He had a microphone when he was breaking into kitchens. He can sit now. I don't know where I land yet. Maybe forgiveness and consequences live on the same street and take turns mowing each other's lawns. Or maybe fences are there for a reason. If this hit a nerve, tell me where you stand. Would you hand a kid like Brady the mic, or keep that door closed? Where's the line between community standards and abuse of power in your world? What does justice look like to you? Pay the money back and move on. Or do the time and carry the name. Drop your story. Take your receipts. If you've got them hit, like if you want more real-life pushbacks. Subscribe if you believe small voices can get loud together, and let's argue it out like neighbors.